one
We got
here?
our last three. We're heading for home. We're going to talk about what I call the bad recruiters. Just flat out, they're not good at recruiting. That's the dark tan. Let's go to the
You could
Big
be a
Ten
little bit
side.
more positive, Jeff. You could say like
Well,
room
I'm going
for
to give some
improvement,
positive.
maybe.
I'm glass half full Jet. I'm Big Ten Jeff and glass half full Jet at the same time. Believe Jeff
Okay.
at the same time.
Okay.
But go to the other Big Ten table. There you go. So first, Indiana, basketball school, but now becoming a football school, I guess, based on the performance on the field. 5-year average Big Ten recruiting ranking of 13.8. That's actually 16th best in the conference. So 16th best, third worst, depending on how you look at it. Their 5-year national rank is 52. I'm going to round that 52. So not that great, but it mostly supports, they have a 46% 5-year winning percentage. It'd be way worse if you didn't factor in the 11-2 season they just had. But really, I mean, their results on the field reflect their recruiting, right? They kind of match pretty closely. What's interesting, Tom Allen did have mixed results, but had a couple really good years. He had the surprising 6-2 record in the 2020 shortened COVID season, but he never really parlayed that into good recruiting success. He had one really good class. That's 2022, ranked 6th in the Big Ten. Want to say that was in the 20s in the nation or something like that. But never really built the momentum off of what he did. Let's see,
25th.
the 25th in the nation, right? But that's 1 year. You need to stack classes together. 1 year recruiting is not good enough. So Cincinnati, we all know, great success, had in the teens, the number of players that came over from James Madison to help him have that great year. You would at first think, oh, he had that great year. Why wasn't his recruiting rankings better than 14th this year? The reality is it takes longer than that to see success from a season. Recruiting is about relationships with high school coaches, building ties to recruits that you need to start recruiting very early. You can't come in late in the game unless you throw a pile of NIL cash at people, which does happen. But really, recruiting in high school, this is about a numbers game here, and it takes a while to build that momentum. I would be very surprised if next year you don't see better numbers, and it's going to come from having that great season from last year. So we're going to have to see how that goes. But Indiana's been third worst in the Big Ten. Let's go to Purdue. I know if I were a Purdue fan, I would wish, man, Jeff Brom, why did you leave us? You went 36-34 over 6 seasons. He actually had a couple really good national classes. Brom had, in 2019, a class ranked 25th in the nation. In 2020, a class ranked 32nd in the nation. So he had a couple good classes back to back. Their 5-year Big Ten recruiting average is 14.4, so that's second to last in the conference. This is brutal. Over the last 10 years, Purdue has finished last in the Big Ten 5 times. 50% of the time in the last 10 years, they finished last. And then, not surprisingly, their win rate is 42%. Frankly, I would think it would have been worse than that, but Brom had some good years. He went 9-4 and 8-6 in a couple years back to back. Otherwise, that win rate would be a lot worse. What's interesting is Ryan Walters, of course, 2 years at Purdue only, was fired. He actually had a really good class in 2024, 8th in the Big Ten. That was 27th in the nation. But it didn't parlay into winning. I think it parlayed into a bunch of transfers right this year to other schools. Barry Odom coming in, he had the 98th ranked recruiting class in the nation, last in the Big Ten, but he didn't have a chance. It really wasn't his class, so it's unfair. The best hope is that he brought over a bunch of transfers from Las Vegas, UNLV. But too early to judge Odom in any way. But Purdue has just struggled mightily. And then our final team is Northwestern. Their 5-year Big Ten average ranking is 15.4. That's last in the Big Ten. They've never finished better than 14th in Big Ten recruiting the last 10 years. and yet, and then nationally they're about 58th. What's amazing about Northwestern is they actually, won two Big Ten West titles in this time frame in which they're recruiting not very good at all. It's a nature of them being in the offensively challenged Big Ten West for years, but it does speak to Pat Fitzgerald and his ability to get the most out of his players. They were a well-coached team. They had a lot of more experienced, older players playing, even though they weren't highly recruited. They were able to parlay that into reasonable success, kind of like in off and on years. But David Braun has his work cut out for him, man. I mean, it is not going to be easy because they're no longer in the nice, Big Ten West with that cushy schedule facing offenses that don't know how to pass the ball, So they're my last one there, JR. Going to be could be tough times for David Braun, I think. What's your comments on our bad recruiters?
Yeah. Rudy, I think Rudy came in late here. He says we're looking at pre-Signetti era for Indiana. Yeah, so Rudy, what we're looking at here is the last column there on the side. That's the record percentage over the past 5 years. So judging that by recruiting rankings and stuff there. So obviously Signetti lifts that up with this year, but the previous years before that take that percentage down a little bit. So as the years stack and Signetti does better, that'll obviously improve, and we'll see if the recruiting goes with it or not. But just wanted to clear that up for Rudy. I saw him ask that. So, excuse me. Yeah. So as far as I'm concerned, Northwestern, academic requirements there and stuff like that. Anybody who's at Northwestern has an uphill battle for them because they have more than just try to find good players in store for them there. That's why Pat Fitzgerald was so valuable with what he was able to do for that team. He understood the culture. He understood how to get players there. David Braun is going to have to, figure that out. It looks like he did the first year, winning 8 games, but this last year wasn't as good. 17th in recruiting both years. They're really going to have to develop their players if they want to make some more noise in the Big Ten. Purdue is very interesting. Ryan Walters, he had the 8th ranked class his first year there, then down to 18th when he gets fired. I mean, Ryan Walters brought in good players. He just couldn't do anything with them, and he didn't do a good job as a head coach, and he also didn't hire a good support staff for him. I mean, he had by the end of it all, he's a defensive guy playing or calling offensive plays, and he had old high school coach the year before calling offensive plays for him at 1.2. So just not a great situation there for Ryan Walters. But I mean, everybody wants to be Indiana, right? Everybody wants to get classes that are 16th, 14th, 17th in the Big Ten, and then go 11-1 and win the not win the, but get into the playoffs. Easy schedule helps with that, right? Easier schedule helps with that, but at the same time, you have to be good with your transfer portal. You have to be good with your who you're seeing there, and developing those guys for your system as well. Not just finding good talent, but finding talent that fits your system, and we'll do what you need them to do. So that's what you look at there.
Yeah, the other big difference between an Indiana and Purdue, it's interesting you said, because it's not just he pulled all those players from James Madison, but he basically brought over the entire staff from James Madison, except for the offensive line coach, Bob Bostad, who's a former Wisconsin guy, and he wanted to keep him because Bostad is excellent. So when you have your whole staff intact, the culture is established. The way we do things is established, and you can hit the ground running if you get good players, which they did from the transfer portal. That's why it worked. For Purdue and Ryan Walters, first-time coach, he's putting together his staff for the first time. He's trying to get his staff in sync. They can't hit the ground running at all, right? Because he's a first-timer, and the coaches are trying to get in sync, let alone syncing with the players. So, that's the power of the Signetti formula, getting transfers in, but also bringing in an entire staff with you where everyone knows what's expected of each member of the staff, so you can really hit the ground running. And that's what Indiana did. So
Yeah, that's a really good point to bring up. Not only did he bring good players with him, but he had a solid staff with him as well. When you add all that together, that is kind of the recipe you get. Really good staff, brought really good players with you, and he didn't lose much of his staff either. In a favorable schedule that helped with that. I do want to point out with Indiana, they did get the cornerback. I almost forgot to mention him. I apologize. Brian, one of those two. Byron, I think it is Baldwin. He came in 4-star for Indiana. They were able to get him at the end of the cycle. That's huge for Indiana. It's not quite 5-star quarterback Dylan Raiola was for Nebraska or anything, but he's going to be a player that can help with connections and be kind of the example of, hey, we can bring you in, and if you're a highly rated prospect, we can develop you here and you can turn into an NFL talent. So Signetti's got him a player there that he can start showcasing to other teams and or to other players, and that'll be what you want.